Well, all right. Today, I think we're going to get into doing some market analysis. It's one of these things that it's wildly important. I mean, we need to be able to run our numbers properly, whether we are doing it for a listing or whether we're doing it for our buyers. I just feel that that analysis that we run on the property, it's a huge ethical piece as well. Oh, sorry about that. Austin, can you take over for a minute? I have to answer the call.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So one of the keys for us as agents across, whoever we deal with is understanding the value of homes that you're working with. So a seller is going to require that you understand what the value of their home is in today's market. A buyer is going to need you to understand whether what they're looking at and what they're doing is going to be valuable as well. So if you can really tell that the house that they're looking at is overpriced or underpriced or a terrific value, you're going to be an asset to them. I have no idea what Joe was going to lead with today, so I'm kind of winging it right here. But the key is understanding what a value is and what isn't. One of the most important ways to do this is to get into as many houses as possible. If you're new in the business, preview houses weekly. If you've been in the business for a long time, it's still really important. If somebody is just a listing agent, it's still important for them to get in as many houses as possible, because you don't really have that gut feeling without seeing a lot of homes. So there's an art and a science to this. And depending on the person that you're working with, you're going to want to lean more into an art piece or a science piece.
Yeah, I mean, I would 100% echo that. There is a lot of a property analysis that it is art. It is putting on a real estate hat, a real estate knowledge, and giving value to certain things. And we need to understand what the value of those are. I mean, one of the biggest ones that, I say I will struggle with sometimes is acreage and giving a proper value to acreage, because you can't just go look for sold lots, because a sold lot doesn't compare to a home with a lot with a home on it anyway. So it's more of what, in my opinion, what I like to do is what would a buyer be willing to pay extra for that extra quarter acre, extra half acre, or something along those lines, and kind of computing it that way. I'm curious to know, what do you guys use for running a CMA? Because there's a lot of different systems out there as well. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I developed my own spreadsheet. So I run everything on an Excel spreadsheet. So I've got differences in acreage accounted for on there, differences in square foot accounted for.
I love that. Anyone else?
I know it seems like a lot of work, but I like to do almost 3 different ones, because our CRM has one built in that kind of automatically does most of it. And then I like to use the MLS, and then sometimes cross-reference with RPR and stuff like that. So kind of gives you a good basis, and then you can make adjustments based on that.
And I like that method. I mean, I am really about using a lot of different spaces for it, because I mean, RPR can be pretty good. I mean, shit, sometimes I look up what the Zillow's estimate is. I know Zillow's never been in that home, but like, when it's more on listing appointments, it's for me, I think it's really important to bring all of the different pieces, because I want to bring the one that they can see, which is likely the Zillow's estimate. And then there's the RPR, and then there's, like, in the tax records, there's an AVM in there as well. So I'll often go look at that as well. Personally, what I use is I use the MLS and the MLS CMA system. I was taught this from a broker at a previous brokerage that I was at, and really have adopted his mentality for it. The other side of this is I try to meet at least once a year with an appraiser and sit down and have lunch with them, or just sit with a Zoom with them and go over their process, because ultimately they're the final decision. we need to understand that, like, as much as we put out the numbers, that appraiser is the one. So I want my process to match that appraisal process as much as possible anyway.
So Joe, you were just talking about how using different automated value methods can be helpful. I've got a listing appointment at 10:30 and I did a group of, I guess you can't see it right there, but the automated values within all of those platforms. So I've got Redfin, Zillow, AVM, and RVM on here. And then I did a cost per square foot, just in case this seller is really analytical. I can say, here's what all the models are telling me. And then here's what my gut is telling me. And if you can go at it from a math and from a feel standpoint, you're going to be able to serve people well.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with that. So I would be more than happy to run a CMA in the process that I use and how I do it if somebody wants to like pick out a property on the MLS. I would prefer that it is not like a crazy property, just so we can, you know, at least just go over the process without having to go too deep into it anyway. I mean, if somebody's got one, if they're on the MLS, find something that's either on the market or has an accepted offer or something like that. I don't want a sold property anyway, so we can do, you know, a true analysis for it anyway. Somebody let me know when they've got one and I'll share my screen and go over it. And I apologize ahead of time for all of the tabs that I have open, but that's just the way that I roll.
Anybody have one?
I'll grab one for you. Just give me a sec here.
Thanks, Chris.
You want one that's active, right, Joe?
Yeah, something that's active anyway.
Let's do. Oh, not that one. One sec here.
Or even something that somebody's shown before. That would be really phenomenal because you could have some insight a little bit further into that home, because you know you need to walk through a home before you can really do a proper analysis on it. But you know, we can do as much as we can just looking at the photos anyway.
Why don't you do that one that we ran into each other at, Joe, last week?
Oh, what was that? What was
There's
the
an
address?
Inver Grove off 72nd. I think it's
Uh-huh.
pending now.
God, what was the address? I don't have my phone on me.
I've got one for you, Joe.
All right, what is it?
12852. I believe that's the number. Essex. And I saw your card there as well.
Yeah, I know this one.
Yeah. We just put it under agreement last night.
All right. This is funny. You know, it has a wood foundation, right?
No,
Yep. My buyers walked away from it.
I didn't see the wood foundation.
Yeah, we were the ones that had the first accepted offer on it.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
That's interesting. Yeah,
Yep.
we got an inspection coming up.
All right. So my process, first thing that I am going to do, you know, one, definitely look through the photos, but the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the tax records. I always feel this is an important piece that should never go overlooked, because we want to trust other real estate agents without a doubt. We want to trust that the information that they are putting in is the proper information, but looking up those tax records, comparing square footage, to me, is something that's important. Here we go. So bedrooms, tax has 4 bedrooms, they have 5. So that's something that's a little bit different. Tax has 2 full bathrooms, they have 1. Square footage wise, it's all the same here. You know, a lot of times it will have, oh, weird. So they are the same. Really weird that that popped up like that. So these numbers, square footage to me is one of the biggest adjusting factors when running an analysis on the property. It is something that is wildly, wildly important. So above ground square footage to me is probably the most important. So next thing I'm going to do, obviously grab the MLS number. I'm going to open up a brand new search. Put that in here. I am going to look at active, TNAS, pending, closed, canceled, and expireds. Canceled and expireds, I'm typically only looking at more when I'm on going for a listing appointment, because for me, looking at the canceled and expireds is a good way to show a seller if they price it at this number, it's not going to sell. So there's not always this data in there, and especially in the market that we're in right now, it's much less likely that we're going to see that. But I think it is important to at least put those in there. Now, when running a market analysis, the way that an appraiser is going to do it is they are only going to compare like to like, essentially, as far as all of my understanding goes. So this is a split entry. So now when we have split entry, there's only one comparable, which is actually the active property. So that means we need to go out a little bit further to find something. If at all possible, we never want to cross major roads. Now, in this area in Apple Valley, going across McAndrews, going across Johnny Cake or Diamond Path or Pilot Knob, it's not going to make a ton of difference down here. But that's where you need to understand neighborhoods and understand just a little bit more. Traditionally, typically, an appraiser is going to want to stay within a 1 mile radius. You know, when you get out in the country a little bit more, you can definitely go out further, without a doubt. I mean, I've had to go 4 or 5 miles, and then you get those super unique properties that there just isn't anything else like it on the market. I just wrote an offer for one last night in Inver Grove that's like an 8-acre property that's on water, and it's a 4-level split. There's nothing like that has sold anywhere around there. So we needed to get really creative with that analysis, but that's a whole nother one. So at least this right here, we've got what looks to be 3 comparable properties as far as the style goes. So our active is the largest one here. And as much as these are comparable homes, I don't think that they're not going to be suited super well for doing an analysis because the square footage is quite a bit different. This one right here on Everest, I would probably bring that one in, but we're getting to be like 700-800 square feet difference. The reason I don't like to use properties that have a drastically different square footage on them is because when we are making these adjustments, it's going to change things a lot. And I think it changes things almost too much. So traditionally, an appraiser is only going to go back 6 months. What I would do in this example, at least for myself and for my buyers, is probably go back a little bit further rather than going out further, because I want to stay within the same geographical area. So for this one, I'm going to go back a full year and just to see what comes up. And then we can make some adjustments. So we got 15 properties that came up if we go a full year. So then I'm going to go back to my map and probably bring that in a little bit tighter to just hopefully eliminate a few of those that aren't as close by. Excuse me. So now I've got at least 2 here that are a little bit closer. This one on Durham, we'll probably end up using that, and probably this Edinburgh. So next thing that I do is I am going to literally quickly scroll through these to kind of understand in comparison what they look like to the subject property. So it's funny, I know a lot about this property because we went through an inspection here. So I have a good understanding of the condition of this property and just what it's like. It is in very good shape. It was very well maintained overall. So it needs some cosmetic updates, and it has a wood foundation, and that's something we can get into a bit more on this. But this home, this feels really comparable to that home just by looking at the photos anyway. So we're going to use that one. This is another one in there. Again, this feels pretty comparable. And just because time-wise, I'm gonna go pretty quickly through this and maybe not spend as much time as I typically would on this analysis. Shoot, let's add that one in.
I've seen this Durham home, and that would have been a good comp.
All right, good. This one, unfortunately, there's only one photo of, so it's sold before print. I will also tell you, please, as a listing agent, if you sell a home before print, add some additional photos. It doesn't matter if they're iPhone photos, it doesn't matter what they are. In the agent notes, give some understanding of what the property is. Hey, this home was in really great shape. It was immaculately cared for. Hey, this home had some issues with it. If you are the listing agent and you don't want to receive a bunch of phone calls from appraisers asking you for information about the property, just put the info in there. And it helps other agents as well to be able to run analysis, because I don't really know a lot about this home. Yeah, you know, there's new carpet, new paint, it's in 196 schools, there's gorgeous trees. That's not really helping me a whole lot as far as doing an analysis with this property, but we'll bring it in and, you know, we'll do what we can with it, basically. This one, yeah, this home, I used this in my original analysis. I remember they kind of went all out on upgrades here, and you know, from the stacked stone fireplace, looks like brand new doors, looks like new windows possibly throughout the whole thing, brand new kitchen, countertops, flooring. Like, this feels like it was a flip pretty much. So this one, you know, sold for a very, very high price in comparison to a lot of the other ones, but we can still use it and just make some adjustments. What I typically do from there is I'm going to go in and I'm going to email these properties to myself, because I want to, when I send this analysis to my buyers, I want to show them the comps that I was using. So I'm going to email those comps to myself, so I have a link for that to be able to send to them. But what I'm going to do first or next essentially is click on the CMA button, select my contact. I'm just going to put myself in here. Oh, as far as pages go, this is what I use for pages for my CMA. If anybody wants to screenshot that, feel free. If you use the MLS, these are some of the things that I feel are important to get across to a buyer or to a seller. Then putting in the subject property, put the MLS number in, fill it. It's going to put all this info in. Technically, I should copy all of this info, and then on the cover sheet, you don't want it to be blank. Works. So these are my comparables now. Map wise, we're in, you know, a good radius here, I feel. So now is when I'm going to start making adjustments to the comparable properties to bring them in line with the subject property. We use some baseline numbers. Now, we use these baseline numbers for homes that are median sale price. When you get into neighborhoods where, you know, Edina, Bear Path, you know, those types of places, these numbers need to be adjusted a little bit. But for bathrooms, we just give a value of $5,000 per bathroom. And there's some adjustments that can be made in there depending on what that bathroom is. You know, is that a Pittsburgh bathroom? If anybody's not familiar with what a Pittsburgh bathroom is, it is that basement bathroom that is literally a toilet sitting in the middle of the room. Most agents will call that a bathroom because it's plumbed in and it's technically a toilet. And legally on the MLS, you can put that in there. It's called a Pittsburgh bathroom because they started in the coal mines. The worker would come home, go down to the basement, use the bathroom, get showered up, come upstairs for the rest of the family and join them. So that's where the term Pittsburgh bathroom came from, essentially. So bathrooms, and like I say, there's additional adjustments we can make in here, but due to time, we're just going to go this route anyway. Bedrooms, we give a $10,000 valuation to. So because this home on Edinbrook only had 2 bathrooms, there's $5,000 additional that's given to it. So where that home sold for $420,000, we're now adjusting the price on it to bring it in line with this one and saying it's now worth $435,000 because it gets another $10,000 because it had 1 less bedroom as well. So we're trying to make these properties the same as this property by giving monetary adjustments to it. They're all single family homes. They're all 2 stories. Fireplaces, I go back and forth on this. You know, it's if you're going to add a fireplace in, it's probably going to cost you at least $5,000. If you've got a huge stone fireplace that is absolutely beautiful and amazing, you know, that's got more value than $3,500 or $5,000. But we're going to just put $5,000 in because it's going to cost at least that much to add one anyway. I do 3,500 when we're in a little less nice of homes anyway. Garage spaces, we give $10,000 per garage space. We could probably up this. Cost of materials, cost of construction has definitely gone up. You can't really build a 2-car garage for 20 grand anymore. That used to be pretty feasible. Now it's probably more like 25. So maybe this number should go up to about 12,500. But we go 10,000 per garage stall. Now, if you get a property that's got 7 or 8 garages, you know, there's a point of diminishing return on that, and I will not always give the same value. Attached garage, they all have attached. When there's a detached garage, I will typically give between $5,000 and $7,500 from a detached garage to an attached garage. I lived in a home with a detached garage, and I know how much I hated it. And I know that me personally, I would be willing to pay at least $7,500 for 2 identical homes, and one of them has an attached garage and one of them has a detached garage. So that's where I just kind of put on my what would I pay for it and what do I think a buyer would be willing to pay for it. As far as your built, the vintage of the home here, these are relatively the same. You know, in 1984 and 1994, there was quite a bit of different construction that was taking place. This one in particular, because of the foundation being wood, it's very different. I have a lot of different adjustments that I have made for your built. You know, I try to stay within a 10 to 15 year time period for vintage of the home. I think it's really important. Homes that were built in 1920 are not comparable to a home that was built in 1984. So I think it's really important to stay within the same vintage. We could go through and definitely make some adjustments for the exterior. This had a cedar front on it and steel around the rest of it. That's a great exterior in my opinion. Vinyl, you know, I would maybe give, you know, an additional $2,500 or so, because that's vinyl as opposed to steel siding and the cedar that's on the front of the home. So I think there's some additional value in there. The brick and stone, and I think that's probably comparable to the steel and the cedar in my opinion anyway. Basement wise, they're all finished, they're all livable, they're daylight. We can go into this further and to like really dial this in. I would go back to each property, take a look, see if they're a walkout basement and make some adjustments there, because I feel a walkout basement has $10,000 additional value over a non-walkout basement. And even over like a daylight, like lookout type of a basement. Those walkout basements to me are wildly valuable. People really like those, and I think there's a good amount of value there. This one says it's on a body of water. I don't recall that. Oops. Back to the comparables and take a look at that one again.
It's a pond right along Pilot Knob,
Okay.
just south of the subject property.
Okay.
There's
so they
a
didn't even put any photos of it. So honestly, I'm not going to make any adjustment for that, simply for the fact that, you know, they didn't mention it in the listing exactly. All right, total finished square footage above grade and below grade. This is to me where the biggest adjusting factors, some of the larger adjusting factors take place. We need to come up with like a baseline number for this and for making some adjustments here. So what we have traditionally used in the median sale price, because we need a baseline factor, this is not price per square foot as far as what the home is selling for. We just need an adjusting baseline factor here. So I am going to use $100 a square foot for above grade square footage and $50 a square foot for below grade. Because above grade and below grade square footage is not worth the same amount of money. As far as square footage goes, finished square footage. I thoroughly feel above grade is worth twice as much as below grade. Now, if we go into some more expensive neighborhoods, I'm definitely going to adjust this up to 125 or 150, possibly even $200 a square foot, and then adjust these up to 75 or 100 type of thing. So this right here, I think, is a really, really good indicator of some of the square footage and just what's going on there. Foundation size, I typically don't do a lot with that.
Hey, Joe,
Size, yep.
have you adjusted your cost per square foot adjustments in the last 2-3 years?
So I feel that this isn't a cost per square foot adjustment exactly. This is more just getting a baseline for making an adjustment. And if property values in that area are higher, I definitely go higher without a doubt. But for me, this is this is just a way for coming up with a baseline that we can use kind of over and over again. But I do think that probably at this point, because prices have come up like 40%, that maybe I should make these values possibly a little bit higher. But I will say, you know, the subject property that we're looking at here, you know, this is a $450,000 home. If I were to adjust this to 150 and call this one 75, that shows the value is well beyond this. You know, so personally, I don't think that adjusting that value up right now is helping me in making a good analysis on the property.
That makes sense. It's interesting when you show these to homeowners
It is.
and
you have
they
to
realize
explain
how little their below ground square footage helps them
Yeah.
from an appraiser's standpoint, because the appraisers really put a stark difference between one floor and another.
I mean, I've seen a ton of appraisals that literally will not even count a basement bedroom as a bedroom because it's in the basement and they're just like not even looking at it. You know, I don't know if that is every appraiser out there type of thing. We've all gotten some weird appraisals back without a doubt, but yeah, that was a bit interesting. For this one, this is acreage. This is one I definitely struggle with here because they're all relatively small lots. This lot went back into the woods quite a bit. Is it usable? It's not totally usable for what it is. So like, is this additional acreage really even beneficial to this property? I don't know that somebody would be willing to pay that much more for it. So you can see, I mean, these are just some that have, because I've used them over and over. There's a lot of different values that you can use for acreage in here. I mean, if we even put in just $15,000, you know, I think maybe even that's something in there just to have something for some adjustment in there. 15,000 is pretty low though, as far as a number goes. And I think that's probably more in line. Seller contributions. This is one that we always need to take out. Because what we have to figure here is that the buyers artificially inflated the purchase price to get closing costs covered or to have something done at the property. So I don't ever feel that this is true value of the home when there's closing costs that are involved. So I always reduce those down in every property. So, all right, now we can get into some of, I have saved here. So if you're doing this on the MLS, when you're in subject property, forgot to go over this, down here at the bottom, you can put in your own custom fields into this CMA. I've just got one in here. I just call it other factors. This is just, you know, for me to now put on my real estate hat type of thing and start making some other adjustments. You can put whatever you want into these, but make sure you save it as a custom field. As a default, and then it'll be there every single time anyway. So, all right, we know that this property on Elkwood was above and beyond, you know, a lot. Shit, wrong button here.
One detractor on that Elkwood one was the location. It is right on Pilot Knob. It's pretty loud.
So it's loud, but this home has been, you know, really done to the nines. This exterior patio, the, you know, tons of pavers, the porch, like all of this, it seems, did you walk through this one, Austin?
I did not.
It seems like there was a substantial investment put into this property. Now, this bathroom, they didn't completely finish everything in here, but it's still nice. You know, is this just tape or is that a real shower door? I've seen TikToks and Instagram reels where people are just putting tape on their shower doors to make them look much nicer. We don't know, unfortunately, but we do know that that bathroom was like redone anyway, and they seem to have done a good job. Pretty much everything in this home seems like it's almost brand new or was freshly redone. Something that I always look at is the trim. I mean, it's a small thing, but this is the old original trim. They didn't put the bigger, thicker trim in. So as much as they did a lot of work, they may not have done everything here. That's one that, you know, here they've got the new trim in, but that's to me, that's a flipper thing when they don't do new trim everywhere and just in certain areas. But it does look like there's new windows. I'm then going to go in, read through some of this type stuff, kitchen renovation, new roof, new windows, you know. All right, so this home was, yeah, straight out of HGTV type of thing. So what type of an adjustment could we make for that property as compared to the subject property? You know, that renovation, that value in that one was absolutely a minimum of like 50 grand. It's new kitchen, new bathrooms, paint, light fixtures, flooring, that type of thing. I could easily probably go 60 to 65,000 on that. But for, you know, whatever's sake, let's put 55,000 in there. So that adjusts this one back down to 499. This is now starting to look a little bit more like the numbers of what this property, you know, what it was listed for, definitely, and what I know about the property as well. Essentially what I'm doing now is I am going into each one of the comparable properties, looking through them a little bit further, trying to find any major differences. This one here, this was the one with no information about it, basically. Unfortunately, I just can't really make much of any adjustments there without knowing anything about that home. Let's see. This feels pretty comparable. A few newer items here. This one just closed, actually, so that's interesting. It was a 3-month closing period. Again, this feels like a pretty comparable home, so I'm probably not going to make a lot of adjustments for this one. Newer appliances, new countertops. This guy. I hate tile countertops. I hope nobody ever does that in their home. It's like new carpet, some new light fixtures, paint, a lot of paint. But nothing spectacular about this one. Some new doors. That fireplace, we can make some adjustments because that's not a nice fireplace as opposed to the other one. All right, so adjustment wise. Now the other thing is the fact that this home on Essex has a wood foundation. Man, what do you adjust for that? You know, I mean, wood foundations were really popular in the 80s. Pratt Homes was building a ton of homes with wood foundations. Wood foundations, they say, are supposed to be an okay deal to use, but, you know, there can be issues with them. We don't know if that wood was properly treated, all of that. Travis, you are a little bit in the appraisal world. What would you make an adjustment on for a home with a wood foundation as opposed to not, like a, you know, a block foundation?
Man, that's a tough question. I think it would
It
be
is.
kind of loaded based on condition of it, right? Because the wood's
Right.
gonna deteriorate a lot quicker than the block foundation.
Right.
So I think that would have a huge impact, but I don't even know what adjustment I would give that.
Yeah. I mean, all right, so because I know a lot about this property, there's a sump basket that is full of water and there's no pump. And it's got a wood foundation. That means water's not really being taken care of at this property. That could be a big problem. And we found that while we were walking through. And basically what I did for this property is I did $20,000. So I made an additional $20,000 adjustment to every other property. And then I would increase this one to 75. And when we do that, you know, when we're looking at our adjusted numbers between our high, our low, our average, we've really come up with, in my opinion, pretty right on value for where this home was listed. I don't know what method this agent used or anything like that, but these numbers feel pretty good to me. So when we go into pricing on here, I've got a little blurb that I put in under suggested list price that basically I punch in the average and the high and the low to be able to show that to my sellers. So Realist, let's continue that. They've got their value, their automated value, automated valuation module. Is that what it stands for?
Method, I think.
Method. There we go. I never know what that M stands for. But they've got 485, you know, a confidence score of 89 type of thing. I would be curious to, where's RPR at? I'd be curious to understand where RPR has theirs at. I like to look at kind of all of them. I think it's important to bring in several other ones. One, just for a little bit of justification type of thing that I'm, you know, on the right path for what I'm doing. You know, they've never been through the home, but they are computer algorithms that have adjusting factors they are using. And never a ton of way to do it, but I think it's okay. I mean, they're at 447. You know, it's got a range of 412 to 483. I mean, our range is 443 to 479. So I would put this one just, you know, condition wise, I was putting it about right at the list price. I think that they are list price possibly slightly above, maybe 455 is what I would feel value is on this property. And I am not in any way saying that this is the end all be all way to do this. This is a way that I was taught, and it's been really successful for me with the analysis of a property. There is, for me, there's methodology behind it anyway, and a process to it that helps you come to a value that works for me. There's what is it, a million ways to skin a cat type of thing. Don't go skin a cat, but there's a lot of ways to do things. So I'm open to hearing other ways. I would love to know other ways. You know, when we look, actually here, let me go back and share my screen one more time.
Hey, Joe, I gotta scoot here to get to an appointment. Thank you so much for doing this, and I hope you guys have some more good information. I learned a lot already, and I'll follow up back up with you this afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Good luck on your listing appointment.
Thank you.
Part of the additional analysis that is put in here basically is comparing the above ground square footage of the subject property with those of the comparables suggest a price of $554,000. So this is only comparing the above grade square footage here. Now, because that adjustment is one of the larger adjustments that I make, I think it is very, very important to be comparing properties that have a very similar above grade square footage, because otherwise these numbers can be thrown off really drastically, like very drastically. There's oftentimes that, you know, we'll be looking at a property that has an unfinished basement. Well, that property's total finished square footage is 3,000 square feet. But when we're comparing that to a property just down the block that is also 3,000 finished square feet, but that foundation is only 1,600 square feet and has a finished basement, there's a lot of different value there. And I also tend to make a pretty substantial adjustment for homes with an unfinished basement that are able to be finished, because there's a lot of future value that's there. And just because that space is unfinished, it is more valuable than a space that cannot be finished, if that makes any sense. Is that helpful for anyone?
For sure, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean-
very helpful. Thank you, Joe.
yeah, of course, of course. I mean, I think it's, I think what I would, and like I say, this is what I was taught. I would love for anybody else to show me how they do it, because we all can be better at analyzing
Analyzing.
at analyzing properties by picking up pieces of what each other are doing. So like, what are the holes in what I'm doing? What are you guys seeing in here that doesn't feel right or isn't correct? Yeah, Steven.
There's a couple things that I do a little differently. You know, the numbers that you're using, I would say, you know, like your $100 adjustments or whatever it is, or $1,000, 5,000, don't matter so much exactly how close they are, because when you've got 4 or 5 houses, if you're off by a couple thousand on each house, it doesn't matter, they average out. So my numbers that I use are very different than your numbers, but I just ran it in my Excel spreadsheet and I got 479, I think. So nearly the same as what you got, but I didn't spend time doing finite adjustments on it.
Right.
But another thing that I do in my spreadsheet is, I'm just pulling it up right now. I also weight houses, have a weighting factor based on distance to the subject property. And I also weight it based on status. So if I use a pending one, it gets less weighting points. And I also weight it based on how different the square footage is compared to the subject property.
Yeah.
So
I think
Yep.
that's very valuable.
exactly like what you're saying, if you're using a 2,100 above ground versus a 2,800 above ground, it's less weighting than the 2,700 versus 2,800 square foot. So those are some of the weighting factors that I use. So I actually use a weighted average on my spreadsheet.
Ah, so you're taking, so essentially what you're saying is a property that is more similar is.
Yes,
being
higher
more
weighted.
Yes.
Yep, yep.
Ah, I
So
really
s-
like that.
Similar in distance, similar in square footage, and sold versus pending or TNS.
And, you know, that's definitely something that I guess I do, but it's more of like, here's the numbers, but I feel this was the property that compared the most to our subject property, because like I say, I send along a link to the comparable homes and I say, hey, that one adjusted to this number. I think, you know, we've got these other properties in there, but this was really the closest to it anyway.
Do you want to see the spreadsheet? I can share it if you want to.
100% here. I think, yeah, you should have the ability to share.
Here's my spreadsheet. It is blank right now, but I'll take the same properties that you're using, these
Mhm.
or similar ones. So you can see I just did a copy of that, and I'm going into sheet 2 and do a paste. And then here's my spreadsheet filled in with all the auto adjustments.
Oh my God,
and
can
then-
you create some spreadsheets for me? That's insane.
So
Wow.
you said this last house, which is on Elkwood, is a busy street.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna give it $20,000. If someone paid 20,000 more to be on somewhere else.
Mhm.
Condition was excellent. So I'd say that's minus 25,000, and the kitchen is much nicer as well. So minus 20,000. So that's similar to adjustments at what you did, right?
Mhm.
So the overall, here's the bottom, 497. That's including a lot adjustment of a fairly high factor. So if I change that down, we're at 488. I've been meaning to save that change, but here's that lot adjustment here, 10,000, 7,000, 7,000. If you say less people would use that lot, because I don't know that one, 0.05. And then you also said a wood foundation, so $20,000 adjustment for that. So now my number is 463.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's same ballpark, right?
it really is, yeah, you know. So, Nate, you just went through appraisal school, didn't you? You are now a licensed appraiser?
I'm in my trainee period, so
All right.
quite a few more field hours, a lot more education, but yeah.
Is, this process of kind of what we're doing similar to what they are training you on in any type of way?
Yes, as far as the adjustments, absolutely. And I just to add to it, and I don't know that it adds any, additional value, but something I like to do as well is kind of utilize the county site and see, what the county has it assessed at. And then, you can click around, especially Dakota County. It's super easy to just kind of click around to neighboring properties, look up any that have, recently sold, and then just kind of see what over that assessed value they're actually selling for too. Just as kind of a general rule of thumb too. Obviously, each property's different, based on upgrades and things like that, but just, something extra to do, I guess.
Right. Cool. I love to hear that.
Oh, Joe.
Yeah.
I forgot to show you where the weighted averages was on my
Yeah, let me see that.
thing. So right here is the weighted by distance, weights by status, and weight by square footage. And I also do a weight by percentage. But overall, this one has a 300,000 unit, if you want to call it that. Here's an 85,000 weighting, so that one's less factor. And then this is 500,000. So that one's definitely the one that has the most impact. And that's that Elkwood Drive one, the same one that you had too.
Right.
So because that was more similar in different ways, or whatever you want to call it.
How long did it take you to build this spreadsheet?
I learned how to do BPOs from a guy that did hundreds a year.
Mhm.
So I just basically put that in here, and then I would say I've refined this it took me about a year to refine it to where I got it to where I wanted to be. And then I've been refining it ever since. And my next thing that I want to do is, remember where I said I put excellent and 25,000 or excellent and whatever? I want to just want to be able to just have it say where I could say, this is a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and have it come up with those numbers for me, the dollar figures for me, and adjust it to an average house. And then I can take the house I'm comparing it to and rank the factors of that house and bring those up or down. So it just spits out the number at the bottom.
I love that.
And then furthermore, then I could use pictures to have an AI model automatically evaluate the status of the kitchen or living room, et cetera, and they can give the rankings for me.
That's cool.
That's beyond though. I mean, I'm not even at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something as well with the analysis that we're doing within the MLS. We should be putting in there more of the other factors type of thing. Like we could be putting in there kitchen, roof, bathrooms, like just overall condition, and doing some finer adjustments for each one of those rather than just having one slot to do it.
That's where all of these are
how
here.
you have. Yeah,
that's all of these. I don't always use them. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Right. And I think those are important because if there's enough of them, they add up to a lot. It's the thing is we don't know the age of the furnace a lot of times on the comparable home. So sometimes it can be a little bit tough to do that and make big adjustments for it. So I always, if a property has a very old furnace and water heater and AC, I'm definitely making an adjustment for it, but it's typically not as large as what the repair cost would be, or the replacement cost, I should say, because we just don't know the age of the others.
Yep, and to go along with that though, if we are off by a couple thousand on each house, it really doesn't matter. Because I typically go more than 3 or 4 houses. I probably do 7 or 8, and anyone that's off by even 20, 30,000, it's not going to affect the bottom line.
Yep. And I think that's an important piece too, is we have to be using at least 3 properties, at the very, very minimum 3 properties. And the more that you can pull in, the better. And it's going to be able to really kind of show people, but it's so important to use similar homes. similar vintage, similar square footage, and the same style. Because an appraiser is not going to compare a 1-story home to a 2-story home. They're just not going to do it. So just because that home next door sold for X price, it really doesn't equate to your value. Yes, in some aspect it can, because it is next door, but an appraiser is not going to use it. It's just, that's the bottom line. And our job as a real estate agent is to not have appraisal issues. You know, I mean, that if you want to boil it down to something, our job is to not have appraisal issues, definitely. So, yeah. Well, this was cool. Thank you, Stephen. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. And if anybody ever wants, you know, help with a CMA, questions about a CMA, anything like that, I'm happy to help. I really enjoy doing them. As long as I don't have to do it quickly and I'm like under the gun to get an offer out, I enjoy doing the analysis of a property. I think it's a fun, creative aspect that we get to put our real estate hat on, come up with values for different items in the home, and do some detective work as well. Like I do thoroughly enjoy it. So if anybody is ever, you know, having issues, please reach out. I'm happy to help out and give you my opinion anyway. Cool. Well, I've got a big day of golf ahead of me, so I'm gonna let you guys go.
Oh boy, where are you playing?
My lender invited me to go play with him and a couple of agents at Highland National, and then I run a golf league on Thursday night, so I might be playing 36 holes today. So,
Attaboy.
So
Yeah.
lucky.
Hey, I haven't taken a day off in a long time, so I'm loving it.
And
All right,
Joe,
everybody.
get him straight, Joe.
Thanks, dude. Really appreciate it. All right, everybody, you have a wonderful day. We'll chat with y'all soon.